Hey everyone, thank you so much for joining me on this live interview. I have Lisa Marie here. I'm so excited to talk to you, Lisa, because you've done like everything I want from Medium, you have already accomplished. And I think you've done such a good job of recognizing that Medium it's amazing that you get paid for writing, but there's so much more potential on Medium, using Medium as a platform to accomplish your business goals. And you have done that incredibly well. So go ahead and tell me a little bit about yourself and how you've started on Medium and where you're going with it.
Okay, sounds good. So I was in the corporate world for a good portion of my life. So really about 20 years back with my background in like web design, web development, user experience design. But I've always enjoyed writing. I've always kind of, wanted to be a writer as when I was younger and always dreamed of having a blog. But a lot of it actually I was nervous about creating because I was like, the things that I wanted to share, I was sort of like, this is too personal. I can't put this out there in the world. Like, what will people think? So I never really got around to it. And then at one point, I'm like, I'm just going to start writing. And I kind of had this idea. I'm like, I'm going to try to, I had just gone through divorce and, kind of a bad breakup. And I was trying to figure out how to make sense of it. And I've always been interested in spirituality. So I started to be like, I'm going to start applying goddess wisdom to modern life. And, I really want to start writing about that. So that's really the first time that I actually started writing and sharing it with the world. And that's where I had found Medium because I didn't know really where else to share it. I didn't have my own blog at the time. And I think that was at the beginning of 2019.
Yeah.
So that's when I started sharing it. And then everything really just kind of evolved and had taken off from there. I quit my job shortly after I started my blog on Medium, not because everything was a huge success and I had the financial, ability to do that. I was just over the corporate world. And I was like, I'm just going to take a little bit of a break for 6 months and kind of reorganize and consider what I want to do next. I was just getting frustrated with work. So I took a little bit of a break, but during that time I started writing more and I had gotten a book offer. So then I kind of just stayed out of the corporate world. But the intention was that I'd probably go back in about, 6 months to a year. I was just kind of taking a time out, but things just kind of quickly changed.
They always do. That's the thing, isn't it? So I think you've done two things that I really want to get into separately. The first one is that you have a book deal from your writing on Medium. So talk to me about that. How are you discovered? What was that process like? How long did it take from essay to book? Tell me everything.
Okay, so I think my first essay might have been published on Medium maybe like April 2019. So I think it was when it first got published, and it was at Human Parts. And then I got an email. So I was writing these goddess essays, about 2 a month, for the first couple of months.
Right.
I got an email in August, and like the subject line was HarperCollins calling. So someone was like, oh, I've read your goddess essays and wanted to see if you'd be interested in writing a book. And I was like,
that's the dream.
I'm like, of course, I emailed back and I was like, of course. And, when we started talking, but, part of me, I was like, well, this isn't really going to go anywhere. This is kind of too much of a long shot, but I'll try. So we started to go through this process and, I talked to the editor and she's like, I came across, she's like, I was actually looking for something else on Medium for like a colleague. She's like, I came across your essays and I really wanted to do a book on goddesses. And I really like the way that you're writing. It's very practical and conversational. And this is really what I want. And she was actually like, and then I had some ideas about how we could structure the book. And she's like, nope, I really like the way what you did on Medium. So she kind of wanted to keep it in line with the structure that I had there. So I did go through the process of writing a proposal, and that did take a little bit of time, not necessarily to write, because I always had it in the idea that I'd like to do a book similar to what I had been doing. So it wasn't like, where do I get started? Like I think I had already even had printed out like a book proposal outline. So I kind of had it in the back of my mind, but it always seemed like such a long shot that I never really pursued it. So we went through the proposal and that took some time, but I kind of got the verbal agreement that we were going to go through things probably like in November. Okay. So I started working on it in January, everything was signed.
So it's been, I guess, like a year and a half, start to finish, discovery, publication. Is that about right?
Yeah, about that. I'm trying to think. And then the manuscript, the first draft of the manuscript was due last June. So Yeah, so I was discovered about 6 months or so after my first essay.
Oh, wow. Okay, right. So
because it was like April to August, so whatever.
Long lifespan then on these Medium posts. Yeah. So talk to me a little bit about Human Parts, because I know for a lot of the viewers, you might recognize Human Parts as this really prestigious publication that's hard to get into. I've only been published in them once, and you have a whole column with that. So talk to me about how you developed that relationship with them.
Right. So at first I had written this essay on like a goddess and how it had impacted me in my divorce. And I thought it was a really well-written essay. So I posted it on Medium. It was like my very first thing. So I'm like looking for all of the views. And there was nothing. So there was like literally like, there wasn't, I don't even think that there was one view.
Oh
so
my gosh. That's
if it was good or bad, because it's just not even getting viewed. It's not that people are like not even trying to read it. So I removed that and, I kind of continued to refine it. I did some research on Medium during that time, and I was reading a lot about people saying that you really need to, as a new writer, you should try to get into a publication. So I started research on different publications, and Human Parts, I think there was something that somebody had, it was another goddess type essay or some sort of divine feminine essay. So, and that was just happened to be what I saw. So I'm like, oh, well, maybe this will be a good publication for it. So I sent over 2 samples because at that point I had 2 goddess essays to Human Parts when they were collecting submissions. And about a week or 2 later, I got a response and was like, oh, we love these. Would you like to do a column for us? And I was just like, sure.
Just off the back of that. Wow, that's phenomenal. So you really impressed them with these samples.
I guess so, yeah. And there was a lot of editing involved at the beginning too. And I also appreciated that though, because I felt, like a very novice writer, that I was like, this is even better because now, now I'm getting editing help as well too. Because, I think at that point, especially when you're first writing, it's like, is this any good? I don't even know if I had Grammarly at that point. I don't even know if I had heard of that yet. So yeah, it was just really nice. And I've always liked publishing with Human Parts just because I've always liked having to get a second set of eyes on anything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what was the reception like when you had your stories published in Human Parts? Because I'm trying to figure out the likelihood of views to getting that editor to stumble across your work and say, yeah, actually, that would make it an amazing book.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question? What was
Yeah, sorry, that was not very well formulated. So how many views do you get on an average post in Human Parts?
It really varies. I can go back and take a look at some of them. There's a few that I don't even know what would be constituting as what is going viral or not anymore, but I would say it really varies. I think one of my most viewed ones actually weren't the goddess essays. They were other essays on relationships were actually the ones that had gone viral, which if that's even considered viral. But the first couple of goddess essays got a ton of views, but then they did start to go down a little bit. I'm not sure if it was if there was just less interest in the goddess essays or if there was different things going on with the algorithm. Because in general, I feel like the views generally have been declining, or you would think they'd be increasing as the audience was increasing. So.
Yeah, I will not get into a big rant about the Medium algorithm because that would take the whole interview. Sorry.
I said, but that's why I guess it's hard to kind of really tell. But yeah, it's interesting that the goddess essays did well, but not as well as my essays on relationships.
Okay, so it sounds like then it wasn't just the sheer volume of people that you happened to be stumbled across, because I think I'm trying to figure out for other people who want to take that path and get discovered by an editor, which is, I just can't, if I got that email, I would be over the moon. And so it sounds like it wasn't just about getting a ton of views and just hoping for
that. It wasn't about that at all for the editor, because at the point the editor found me, I probably had less than 1,000 followers. And it's not the essays hadn't gone viral. So she wasn't even looking at that. I'm not even sure if she's looked at the number of claps or anything. It was just the content that she looked at. So she wasn't looking at followers. She wasn't looking at claps. It was just, oh, this isn't, she happened to stumble across it.
Because I think there's definitely something to be said for the sort of prestige publications. There are so many publications on Medium, but the ones that are well regarded, not just by Medium readers, but also by people in the book publishing industry, that's something that's really worth thinking about and trying to figure out, okay, like if I were a book editor or if I were a publisher for HarperCollins, which publications would I be lurking on, and trying to target those publications. It sounds like that wasn't exactly your approach when you found Human Parts. You just thought it would be a good home for your feminine divinity stories, which I agree. I think it's a great place for them. But like if you were to reverse engineer it and you wanted to get discovered tomorrow, what would your process be now that you know how you got discovered the first time?
I guess it would be similar, and I guess, it would be focused on quality. And I think that's the thing that I struggle with Medium, because I feel like now, I feel like I should be putting more out there to kind of stay relevant and try to get my stories up there. But then I get nervous too, because I'm like, I don't want to put stuff out there. And then what if that's the one thing that someone happens to come across? And they're like, oh, well, this isn't that compelling.
Yeah.
So, yes. And it's interesting because I don't know. For me, it made sense just to kind of focus on it would take me about a week or two to write things. So, I was only getting about 2 essays out a month, but I like that approach better. It's something I feel a little bit more comfortable about. So I think it really depends on your intention. Is it what you're going for? If you want to make money from Medium, that's not the approach. You have to be writing constantly, trying to probably build your audience. And I think but that wasn't really my goal. My goal was, I guess, more to kind of work on my craft. And
right. Okay. Yeah. Thinking of Medium as a portfolio for your work rather than just trying to get dollars from that Medium partner program.
Right. Yeah. So that was never the goal. And it still isn't. I'd be happier with people commenting and interacting than making a lot of money. And I know they often go hand in hand, but the goal was never necessarily. It's nice to be like, oh, look at, I made some money, but for me, it's never been it was never going to pay my rent at the.
Okay. Right. Yeah. So this actually touches on something I wanted to talk to, because when I interview people for my channel, I always love to hear what their thoughts are on quantity versus quality. And it sounds like you fall very heavily on the quality side of things. So yeah, my cat has just decided to make her appearance. Talk to me a little bit about how you balance, sort of staying relevant, publishing, but also making sure you don't compromise on the quality of your work.
Well, I'm not sure I do balance that.
Okay.
To be honest, because I don't feel, I feel like I'm not. And again, I don't know. I know you don't want to go into the algorithm, but I'm not getting many views recently. And I don't know if that's because I should be doing more. So I don't know what the balance is necessarily. I think what I have learned is, because I've been publishing some just on my profile, is that I would rather publish to Human Parts. I'd rather take the time and do that. I get much more views there. I get more people that are engaging with the stories there as well too. So for me, it seems to make more sense, because even when I publish things that's taken me a long time to write on my profile, there's very little views. Even when they curated and I can see it's been chosen for further distribution, they're not getting the views. And that can be just a little demoralizing, because again, the things that I write, I'm not just whipping up in a few minutes in the morning. I really try to offer something of value. So I don't know if I'm going to continue to do that with the new announcement of the publications. I don't know if there will be a home for my work. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. I know with the Medium editorial buyout, for those of you who haven't heard, a couple of days ago, Ev is the CEO of William, and he announced that he was going to be offering a voluntary buyout to his entire editorial team, I think of 75 employees. And so he said, hey, if you quit, I will pay you 5 months of your salary if you just leave now. And from Twitter, it looks like a lot of the editors have taken him up on that offer. And nobody really knows what the future of these publications is going to be. And I guess that includes Human Parts. It sounds like you weren't compromising. You made sure that every piece that was posted to your profile was very representative of your quality as a writer and who you were and what you believed in. Is that right?
Yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. My friend Michael Thompson takes a similar approach, which if you're watching this, you may have seen my interview with him, where he does not publish stuff just to publish. He publishes stuff that's only, if somebody saw only that one piece of work, they would be blown away by the quality. And I think it's an interesting approach, because it does make you really vulnerable. I publish a lot of quantity, and it means that when something doesn't do well, I can just say that's just one of those things. I sacrificed quality in order to promote more content. But when you're pouring your heart and soul into every piece, like you are, there's no shield. So how do you cope with those bad results? Because I know a lot of writers struggle with exactly that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not easy because I mean, a lot of it for me too is like, well, I put a lot of time into that,
Mm.
like, and I almost feel like it's a little bit of a wasted time to do that. And I also know that I've had much more success like doing personal essays as opposed to when I'm like telling a story about like something that I've gone through than when I'm trying to like share maybe like a self-care practice, even though I put a lot of effort into the self-care practices too. So I guess I'm still trying to understand, what people want to learn. But yeah, I guess I just get more a little bit demoralized. Like, would my efforts have been better spent? Like, would that 5 hours or however long, it had taken me better spent doing something else?
Yeah. Yeah, that's got to be hard. I really like having that little safety barrier between my feelings and the results I get on Medium. Because yeah, I will dip into the algorithm. My views have been very low lately, especially for stuff that I self-publish on my profile. Things in publications have got a better chance for me of performing better. But yeah, self-publishing right now,
Yeah.
it's dead. But yeah.
It's interesting. And I guess, I mean, for some of the things I haven't taken too personally, I mean, I don't know what a good read ratio is, but I feel like my read ratio has improved over time, but yet the views are declining. So I almost don't take it that personally because I'm like, well, people are reading it. So it's not like that they're just viewing and then clicking away. So I don't actually take it all that personally. And I knew that, I did it as well as I could on it. So
yeah,
more of a thing.
It's hard to balance that, isn't it? I mean, I find for myself of knowing, that the opportunity cost of every hour I spend writing something on Medium, could I have been doing something else that would have been more rewarding and made me more money? And that actually brings me to my next part, because the second thing that I think you've done that's so cool is you have launched a course kind of off the back. Well, actually, you tell me. From what I gather, it sounds like it's off the back of your writing, and it sounded like you found a really good community and that people were really responding to those posts. So you created, marketed, and have successfully sold your course. Is that right?
Yes, that is correct. Yep. It's a course, and it is based on the essays. It's based on the book. So it's really how to apply goddess wisdom to modern life. But it goes a lot deeper than the essays in the book. Okay. So there's a lot of there's some meditations, there's some inquiry. This goes into a little bit more Ayurveda, more different self-care practices that you can do every day. So, and some of the people who have enrolled in my course have found me on Medium. So, that definitely has worked as a platform, because I think it helps people to get to know you when they're reading and they see that you're consistent, writing all the time. But it was really great. And I'm going to continue to refine and evolve and relaunch the course and just add more to it.
Yeah. So tell me about the marketing process for your course.
So I didn't market on Medium at all, which maybe I should have done, and maybe I'll do. I'm still, because I've thought of that. I'm like, maybe I could use Medium as a better way of promoting different things, but I know that they kind of frown upon that, so I haven't done that as much. I mean, I do have links to join email list and to get PDFs in my Facebook group, but I haven't really blatantly marked to it. But with the course, what I did is I've been growing my Facebook group, and a lot of that has come from Medium. So if you see a lot at the bottom of my essays, there's a link, if you want to continue the conversation, join my Facebook group, and it's a private Facebook group. So I let people know within Facebook that I was going to be offering this course. I offered a few webinars where I was giving people some self-care practices, and at the end I was saying, if you like this, you can enroll in the course. And I got some enrollees from the different webinars.
Right.
So that's really it. So from Facebook group, my email list, webinars. I did try Facebook ads, not to purchase the course, but to enroll in the webinar. Right. I haven't had great luck with the Facebook ads, but I have had luck with Facebook ads for other things. But I'm still trying to understand the way that works.
So it sounds like the initial pool of potentially interested people did come, it sounds like primarily from Medium, right? That that either joined your mailing list or maybe your Facebook group from your Medium essays. Was there anywhere else that you were promoting your mailing list or your Facebook group?
Within my community, so I teach yoga as well too, and for other different things as well. I have a lot of people that have joined my email list from the book club that I run as well, and I've gotten from that. that. So from a variety of things, but Medium was really the start of my list.
Okay. Yeah, no, that makes total sense. I just launched my own first course this week, actually. No, yeah, it was this week. Gosh, time is very weird. And I had a similar experience where, well, for the bulk of my mailing list, they all come to me from Medium. And I think, yeah, I don't know how good Medium would be for marketing the course itself, but for building an audience of people who would potentially be interested in that course, I don't think you can beat Medium as a platform. So it's cool to hear that you had a similar, although it sounds like you also had alternative sources of signups. I would love to know, how did your content on Medium help you with the ideation of your course? Like, did you use it as feedback? Like, for example, was there one essay that did particularly well and you're like, okay, people really resonated with this. How can I include that in my course?
A little bit, yeah. So actually, I mean, a lot of my essays kind of got weaved into it. So a lot of my essays about relationships and spirituality, and there's one whole module about like, relationships, and it will kind of talk about that. So in some ways, Medium, I feel like, can be used as kind of a sandbox to see the types of topics that resonate with people and not. And it can definitely help in product development when you're seeing like, okay, a lot of people are looking at this and this seems to be resonating well. So, I mean, I had almost even thought of doing a whole course on relationships. Then I got a little bit nervous because I'm like, I can't promise that someone's going to find a relationship after this wonderful relationship after this course. So I kind of paused on that for a little bit, but still have that on the back of my mind at some point.
Yeah.
I definitely think it's a great way of kind of understanding what's resonating with people and what's not resonating with people.
Okay. Yeah, no, I write about so many different things on Medium that I find I haven't really used it effectively as a sandbox myself. And this actually, I did want to ask you about your thoughts on niches, because this is something else that everyone seems to have a slightly different opinion on. I think you can write on Medium about anything that you would talk to a friend about, anything that you're interested in and you have some knowledge and maybe some experience. You can write about that on Medium and find an audience for that. So I write about coding, cats, digital culture, whatever, literally everything. Whereas it seems like you have found your niche and you've kind of stuck to that. But tell me, what did you do that intentionally? How did you develop what topics you write about on Medium?
Part of it is these are the topics that I think about and consider,
right, okay.
Like would probably be most helpful to people. And it's definitely a niche. I mean, there's a lot of people that would probably come across my writing and they'd be like, I don't know what she's talking about, it's a little bit but then there's other people that are like, oh my God, this is exactly what I needed to hear. Thank you for breaking it down like this. So it's I definitely write for a specific person. And I can't remember, it was some big Medium writer. Maybe it was even like Tom Kluger. How do you say his last name?
Tom Kugler?
Yeah,
I love him. He's great.
It's kind of like one of his advice, and it's sort of what I had done, but he said it much articulately. He's like, write for your younger self. So a lot of my essays are things that I need to hear. So it's going to be people that are, have probably gone through similar experiences than me, or, are somewhat similar. And I know that maybe that's leaving a lot of people out, but it's generally the things that I write or things that I need to remind myself of, things that I need to hear, things that I've experienced. It's kind of like writing to my younger self or writing to myself now and just reminding myself of things.
Yeah. I think with Medium, it's such a tricky balance. You have to write stuff that is valuable for the reader. But I do find that my best writing also is when I'm writing for myself, when I'm writing to work out my feelings about something, or if I'm, reflecting on the mistakes I've made in the past. That's some of my best writing when I'm coming from a place. Rather than, I guess, the opposite end of that spectrum would be like, all right, what does my audience want to hear from me? And writing only that. So far out, it's not even in the frame here. You know what I mean?
Actually, I don't even actually know if I've ever done that, because I don't know what other people want to hear. The thing I can write about is really kind of like the things that I've struggled with and how I've tried to make sense of different situations in life.
Yeah, it's been hit or miss for me when I've tried to do that. I mostly go the route of what I see is popular on Medium, and sometimes I try to create listicles because I see that's very popular on Medium. And sometimes they do very, very well, and sometimes they do terribly. But I think it's worth separating performance and pride, because the pieces that I'm proudest of are sometimes not the ones that perform the best. Whereas the pieces that perform the best, sometimes I'm like, why did people care about that? Like, I don't get it.
That's
how do you have like, what's the one story or multiple stories, I guess, that you've written that you're like, this is this is the best writing I've ever done? Sorry, I put you a bit on the spot, and I didn't even prep you for this question, so this is totally on the
probably know that. I mean, it's funny. I mean, I really do like the goddess essays, and the first two are some of my favorites. With like Kali, and that was about my divorce, and Lakshmi, and that was kind of about the divorce too, going through the financial agreement. But I really like the essays that I had done where I really intersect like relationships with spirituality and like what we can learn, how we can use that as a mirror. And there's quite a few of them, and they seem to resonate quite a bit with people. But I think it's funny, there was one essay I wrote, and I probably would never have written it at the beginning, but I've also become much more like able to better embrace my vulnerability. So, in one essay, it's like how to embrace uncertainty in a relationship. I talk about like this crazy time where I was like tracking everything my boyfriend did and how often I saw him and everything in like a spreadsheet. And it was this really crazy experience. And like people like loved it. And I'm like, okay, so you just have to be vulnerable. I'm like, really, I feel a little more confident in my relationship that I can put this out there now. But it was just this really, I was just like kind of like, yep, today I saw him, today I didn't see him, and it was just this really weird thing. And it was the beginning of a relationship, and I was trying to make sense of whether things were going in the right direction. So I kind of talked about, like how I was trying to take a very data-centric analytical approach to something that just cannot be measured that way. But that was interesting because I thought it was kind of crazy. And like, I remember like submitting it and being like, this is like really weird that I'm submitting it. And it did really well.
Yeah, I am still, even after 2.5 years on Medium, I do still find myself surprised by what resonates with my audience. Yeah. It's always a bit of a crapshoot. All right, well, tell me a little bit about what you think you've been on Medium nearly as long as I have, like coming up to 2 years, right? So tell me about, what do you think is the future for Medium, both for you as a writer, but also I would love your speculation on the platform as a whole.
I feel like I always had like such great loyalty to Medium for some ways, because it really helped like started my writing career, and it gave me the confidence I'd become a much better writer. Like I said, I am feeling a little demoralized the last month or so because, the views are just like, I wrote something and it got like 43 views. And I'm like, a huge following, but I'm like, really the only of the—
That's it? Those are the only people who have it, really?
I decided to look at that,
Yeah.
I will probably look at some other places to put my writing, or at least I would love to continue to publish on Medium, but I'll probably look at other places like Thought Catalog or Thrive Global or Elephant Journal. I mean, the problem is anytime you start something new, you're kind of starting from scratch again, which is why I've kind of just focused on Medium, because I didn't really, want to dilute myself further. I have all I can do to get the pieces published on Medium, that I don't know what happens when you start to, go to different places. I just think that might be challenging, but I think I'm going to try it and just see what happens. I get the sense that Medium, with maybe some of the changes that they're making, they're really looking for people that really want to almost post daily or at least several times a week. I think, and I'm just not that prolific. Okay. If I want to write an essay, 2 essays that I think are very high quality that really have a lot to offer, I don't know how they'll do on Medium. Like, I don't know if the algorithm supports like 2 essays a month. I don't know.
Yeah. I guess it is hard to say. I don't know. I'm definitely somebody who favors quality over quantity. I think. Oh, sorry, vice versa, quantity over quality. For myself, I don't know if. Although I have to be honest, the algorithm has not done great for me either. So maybe it's just crap for everyone. Yeah. All right. So I'm going to finish off with one more question from me. And then I also want to open it up to the audience. We're open books here. Ask us anything, especially Lisa. Sorry, Lisa, I should ask. Is it Lisa or Lisa Marie?
It's actually Lisa. Yeah. Just, for some reason on Medium, I added my middle name. So sometimes I go by Lisa Marie, but I could go by either, but generally.
Okay. Yeah. Lisa has done some such cool things by using Medium as a vehicle and not as the end destination. And I'm sure she'll be, we're both really excited to answer any questions you might have. Okay, last question from me. It's kind of a 2-parter. If you were advising someone, either your younger self, in a nod to some previous advice, or just somebody who's watching this today who wanted to use Medium to get a book deal or use Medium to launch their first course, what would you tell them? What would be your advice?
If they had something, a course in mind or a book in mind, I would really focus kind of on that content, that niche. It would have been to research publications that you could get involved that, you know, most cater to that niche. So I don't know. Clearly that might change a little bit, but really just kind of focusing on the quality, I would think. So like really trying to do something that you think that really has value, that speaks directly to your target audience. Also creating, and I think you also offer this advice a lot, is always have a link to your email, because at the end of the day, like, wouldn't it be great if we could directly email everybody that's following us, you know? And I probably have, I just set like less than 1% practically of email addresses of the people that follow me. So always maybe have a lead magnet, which is like something that you can offer people in exchange for their email address, but also kind of goes along with what it is that you hope to write about in your book or your course. But I think like ultimately start trying to get those people that are interested in your articles into your email list.
Yeah, that's something I wish I'd done much sooner. I ultimately got my lead magnet maybe like 8 or 9 months into my journey on Medium. I'd already had a couple of viral hits at that point, and looking back, I'm like, all those missed opportunities.
It's like I didn't do that either. And I think for a while, like Human Parts and like PS I Love You wouldn't let you put that link in. So it's not even that you could have done that, I think, for a while. I think that they are letting you now, it seems to be. But I think for a while, at least I think it was in the style guide that you couldn't even do that. So
yeah, I do think now that they're trying to, from what I gather, this is all I should put on my tinfoil hat because this is all speculation here. It does seem like because they're trying to court established authors who expect to be able to put a link in the bottom of their articles, that they are letting regular writers like you and me do that as well. So hopefully they keep that up and they do let us, because I think it's great if you can make Medium work for you and get, I make a very respectable couple of $1,000s a month from Medium, which I'm over the moon with, but it's got to the point where most of my money is coming from off Medium. And I think that that's always been the case. It's hard to make Medium work just as its own platform. It's much easier to use it as a way to get a book deal. Incredible. Launch a course. Amazing. But we've got a question from Jose Luis, who wants to know, what do you think about starting a publication yourself to start your book as a beta release?
I think that's a great idea. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great idea. It had actually always been on my to-do list to start a publication, to be honest. And I even had the name for it. It was gonna be like Everyday Goddess, where I would just kind of put like more, it'd be like shorter essays in it, like just like more of like, kind of like the Daily Stoic, if you're familiar with that, but like kind of just like little blurbs of goddess.
Okay, yeah.
I just never got around to it, but I always thought that would be really good. And there's definitely so many successful publications that looks like that are not Medium owned, that are still like very good. So I think that that's a great idea.
Yeah, if anything, it seems like the non-Medium owned publications are about to do significantly better than they were a week ago, I guess. Yeah, very uncertain. This is actually, I will also answer this question. I'm going to hop in. I always recommend starting a publication for new writers. It's kind of scary because whenever you put something in your own publication, it means that you lose the opportunity to put it in another potentially much bigger publication. But yeah, that's the way that you can start building your readership that you own as much as you can own them on Medium. It means that you can start, getting a better sense of the kind of work that you want to do, that you feel focused on, that your audience responds best to. So I have my own publication as well called Zuli Writes. And I just post anything that doesn't have a home on Medium on another Medium publication, or that I think is going to be specific to my brand. I put it in my own publication, and I've done pretty well with it. It helps me get, like, that's where I can do a lot of my writing stuff, my Medium writing stuff that other publications wouldn't necessarily want. And it lets me email people. A publication on Medium is the only way you can actually email your followers, your regular followers. You can't do that. And then
do you get their emails, or is it like through the email is it like an interface within Medium?
Through the Medium interface. They don't let you export them yet. I wonder if they're going to start to, because it seems like they're trying to compete with Substack. So I suspect that there will be more email list functionality in the future. But yeah, great question. Jose Luis. One from Amy. Is your upcoming book similar to your essays on Medium, and does it actually include those essays?
It is similar to the essays, but it doesn't include them. So I actually same goddesses, but I rewrote them. I didn't know, because I didn't want to repeat things that people may have already read.
Yeah.
So there's going to be a little bit of overlap with a few of the goddesses, but I basically rewrote everything. It's very similar in format to the one medium. And I think I have about, I don't know, maybe like 11 goddesses or 12 goddesses on Medium. This book has like 38, and they're not, I didn't use all the ones on Medium. I try to keep them different.
Yeah. This is just my own question. What was that like coming up with, because I guess like it's not, the editor liked the concept and the way that you'd written that content. So what was it like to come up with those new goddesses and put them together into a book? Like, is it just a collection of essays or I guess a collection of goddesses? What was that process like?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many goddesses and there's so many different themes. It did get a little challenging because like for each goddess, I also write about a life experience. Oh God, I hope I have enough life experiences to write about, So I did come up with them. I mean, some of them are probably a little bit more substantial than others. But I remember as I was writing it, and I think it's really just getting like on every page. And I usually like to write things out before I write it, whether it's the book or whether it's essays. I like to write it out by hand. It was like, write now, think later, and just kind of just have like that flow of writing to come out. But it was good. It actually came together like fairly easy. I was so excited to write about it. And it was just, and I think where it's, it's probably, I assume it's probably more challenging to write like a novel or something with a more narrative arc. This is kind of like a collection of essays, which I think, makes it a little bit.
Yeah. I think I am currently trying to write a novel just for fun, just because I've always wanted to be a writer, and if not now, then when. And I am finding it very hard because after 2.5 years of creating, 1,000-word essays that are standalone, it is hard to come up with a single cohesive narrative that all ties together. Whereas it sounds like your story, although your book does kind of do that, like it's one common theme. You have all these like column essays that prop that up. It sounds really cool. I'm looking forward to reading it. I think it's going to be awesome.
Good. Yes, and it will be available in a couple of weeks.
Oh, it's so exciting. All right. I'll give a couple more seconds if anybody else has any questions, and then I will wrap up. But I'll let you say, Lisa, any last topics that you did that we didn't cover, or anything else you'd say to aspiring authors / course launchers?
I think Medium is really a great platform to start getting your ideas out there, and even and start to find your audience and seeing what they're interested in. There was one part that I've been using Medium for that I didn't mention. I remember I think I read something about you did an experiment with Facebook ads, and it really go very well. And I've actually had that similar experience where I'm like, let me try. And like, it didn't boost anything for me, like the views, but not the money. But what I had been doing, and I still have to work this strategy, is there was one essay that I think really reflects like the target audience that I would be great for my book and for my course. And I've been doing Facebook ads running to that. And that's really actually grown my Instagram. It's grown my Facebook group. I don't think they're Medium members, so it hasn't done anything for the bottom line.
Right. Yeah.
Actually, that was less important to me. So, the bottom line, it was more trying to get people like as part of my community. And that's actually worked really well to really to use an essay that can really target your audience and then maybe share that essay on different social media channels. So that has worked well. Yeah,
we have actually had a couple of questions come in. Great question from Judith. Yeah, those. I'm guessing she's talking about the images on your essays. Did you find, what was your process for finding them? Are they yours? Did Human Parts come up with them?
The Human Parts comes up with.
Okay, cool. Yeah.
Maybe they've left one in out of all of the essays that I have done, but generally, and they're actually really good. So the Human Parts really picks much better imagery than I have access to. But for the other ones, I've used Unsplash, and I have the professional account for Canva now, and I've been those images as well. So
yeah, I'm on the fence. I use Canva all the time for my own YouTube videos, but I haven't done any. I haven't done any of my own artwork because I'm such a bad graphic designer. It just never felt worth it. But maybe it is because I think
it's the artwork in Canva. I've just picked their photos.
Gotcha. Okay. Right. That makes sense. Yeah.
Yeah.
One from A. Michelle. Do you think Medium's recent changes are going to help it lean more towards fiction writers? Yeah, I would love your thoughts on this.
I actually don't know because I've never written fiction, so I'm not sure, but potentially I think it definitely opens it up a little bit more since none of the Medium-owned publications, to my knowledge, focused on fiction. It seems like there might be more of an opportunity now if that's what people wanted to get into. Would you think?
Sorry?
I said I think you might have a better answer for this one.
It's a similar answer, and the short answer is I don't know. Also, Medium's. I think what you have to keep in mind is Medium's audience is flexible. So I started reading on Medium, maybe in like 2016, there was a lot of startup-y, businessy, techie stuff. When I started writing in 2018, the focus, what seemed to do well, was relationships. You'll remember, you probably saw some stuff from Chris Gage, Brianna Weiss.
She was like the first person I started reading.
Oh yeah, yeah. That dominated the platform, and now, well, I'm not really sure. It's such a weird mix nowadays. But it's the number of people who read stuff on Medium, what they want is always changing. And today, I don't think there's a huge audience for fiction writers. There is some, but I think when most people want to read fiction, they go to places like Wattpad or I'm revealing my ignorance. I don't know any other alternatives to Wattpad, but they don't think of Medium as a home for that fiction. That is always subject to change. It could be tomorrow that Medium publishes, their first series of fiction articles that they commission a random Medium writer to write, and turns out that serialized fiction on Medium performs super well. And then Medium is like, oh, wow, people really want this. Let's put resources behind this. And it becomes overnight a place for fiction writers. It's possible. It hasn't happened yet. So I think I agree with you in that the sort of lessening of traffic or resources towards these big editorial publications does, to me, suggest that there's going to be more eyeballs for everything else, including fiction. I don't know how it's going to play out exactly yet. That's my longer answer. Here's another one from James. How do you balance writing personal experience with research, especially in areas where there's hardly any conclusive research on what you want to write about? Yeah, this is a great one for you, Lisa, because I write about stuff that like pop psychology type of stuff where there usually is one or more scientific articles to prop up what I'm saying.
Yeah, it's funny. It's interesting because I've generally in a lot of my essays, I will bring in something that maybe somebody well-known.
Okay, yeah.
Like Marianne Williamson or John Kabat-Zinn, and I'll kind of interweave different traditions. I don't know why I'm getting an echo all of a sudden. Are you hearing that?
No, you're coming through fine for me.
Okay, I was getting an echo. So I do try to weave expert opinions into some of my essays, but I've also gotten feedback before that I shouldn't do that. That seems like scaffolding, and I should just kind of let my essays standing alone with the expert opinions. But I still feel like it's kind of nice to have known spiritual teachers or well-known authors in there to kind of help to support some of my claims. So that's kind of the approach that I've taken. I usually do try to take in different spiritual teachers or authors, and I kind of weave it into the story as well.
I guess we actually kind of do have similar approaches then, because I do the same thing. I look for the leaders in my field and I try to bring them in, and it sounds like you do exactly the same thing. Yeah, no, so I think, I guess the only real difference is who those field leaders are, depends on your topic. I agree. I think it's always nice to bring in an external opinion just to be like, hey, I'm not the only one who thinks this random stuff. Other very expert people do too. I'm not crazy.
Yeah, I do. It kind of helps too.
Yeah.
And better explain your point and just kind of show relevant examples that, I didn't just make this up, that this is
Yeah. All right. Last question from Chris Mooney Singh. I get this kind of question all the time, and I'm very interested to hear your thoughts on this as well, Lisa. What is there, and if so, what is the ideal length for your articles on Medium?
It's interesting. So for some reason, no matter what I try to do, and the few this year that I've written have been a little bit shorter, but the majority and the ones that have done well have been almost always come out to about 1,800 words. I think that's 7 or 8 minutes has been the ones that have done the most well. And I think I would say 90% of my essays are about 1,800 words in like 7 minutes.
That is so funny. Yeah, I have a stock answer that I give every time, which is the article should be, the ideal length of the article is as long as the article needs to be. And what I do, and I know that sounds like a garbage answer, but I do have a process. I go through and I try to figure out if anything's missing. Was there an opinion I didn't consider, an angle I didn't get into, an expert I didn't cite? What element could I include to make this better? And that's how you make sure it's not too short. And then I go through with my, my digital red pen, and I try to see what doesn't add to the story. And I used to be really fluffy, so I used to actually print out my drafts and go through them with a red pen and be like, okay, this sentence, I can get rid of it and my story still makes sense. And that's how I make sure it's not too long.
I actually do that. I do print it out with my red pen and make sure that like if there's any extraneous things, I usually try to take it out.
Yeah.
A lot of times it will be over 2,000 words, and I kind of have that like, please do not, like I do try not to do that. I feel like that's kind of a lot for somebody, but I do try to make sure that it's not like a lot of extraneous stuff.
Yeah, it's tough because again, I'm going to quote Michael Thompson here because he's a really fantastic writer. I think he says, like, don't kill your darlings, copy paste them into a different Google Doc. So every time he deletes something, he doesn't delete it. He just puts it, or, if he still believes in it, he'll put it in a different Google Doc to be drafted into a new idea later, put into a different article. And at least that way you don't feel like you're killing your words that you've just spent so long and so hard working on. But yeah, I think there's no real answer. Although I will say, as a minimum, I would try to aim for at least 600 words to make sure your idea is at least somewhat developed. Mm-hmm. But yeah, that's my final somewhat non-answer. But all right, we'll wrap things up. Thank you so much for coming on here and sharing all your wisdom. This has been amazing. Where can we find you if we want to read more of your content, see more of your work?
You can go to my website, lisamarierankin.com.
Okay, that's in the
to Facebook, to the book, so everything could be, is accessible from there.
And if you're watching this, you can find that in the video description. I've linked there. I think I might have linked your Medium post and your book as well, which I'm so excited to read. It sounds very cool concept. Yeah, thank you once again for hopping in, and thank you everyone who watched and who contributed questions. I love doing these interviews, and so thank you for watching them and making them possible. If you have any other questions, feel free to leave them in the chat or the comments. I go through my comments every Monday. And if you have any questions for Lisa, I have her email address and I will be able to pass to her in the future. So feel free to leave those in too, and I'll make sure you get an answer. All right, everyone, have a wonderful rest of your Friday. Thank you again, Lisa, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye, everyone.